I want to say a very special thank you before we get started to somebody without whom we would not be able to sit here right now and get this done. To Tech Sergeant William Wallace and my favorite person in the entire world, my little sister. If you like what we do here at Off the Deep End and wish to support us, the best thing you can do is to share it on your social media, but also you can tell your mother, sister, cousin, auntie, the kid that's walking by you down the street, your gym crush, anybody about the episode you're listening to and why you liked it. There's also another way to support us, and it's to go to the link posted in the description and on our Facebook page. And when you become a subscriber, you'll have access to subscriber-only content and ad-free listening for every single episode we put out. No matter what you choose to do, I do greatly appreciate you for tapping in, and please do reach out to our Facebook page so we can chat. Tell us what you feel, what you think, what you don't like, what I could improve upon. At the end of the day, this is meant to be a conversation starter. And just to be completely open and honest, every single penny that goes to the Off the Deep End program with subscribers is going to help other people by spreading the word via ads or getting new microphones so we can have more people at a time. And I really do appreciate every single listener. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great day and don't pass the pain.
I also hate public.
All right, we are live. So thank you for joining me all the way from beautiful wine country, California.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and go right into it. Why don't you start by giving me some background about your first of your childhood years, like your first memories, and from there.
Okay. Well, honestly, I don't remember a whole lot. I remember what people have told me through stories. Family stories were always a big thing between my dad and I, and just the whole family as it is. But let's see. So, grew up in the old Linwood house. It's where we were first at.
On 150th Street in
Don't even remember all of that, but yeah, it was overall, I think, really good. I was super young. Like I said, I don't remember a whole lot. Um, but in terms of earliest memories, I remember doing a lot of silly stuff at that house. I remember being a really playful kid, always playing in the cul-de-sac with our friends. We had a bunch of families in that area, so would always go outside and play with them. Yeah, is there anything like in particular?
well, I think one of my do you remember the first time you rode a hearse?
No.
Okay. Well, I remember there was a couple times. So there was with Grandpa Charlie, he was obsessed, absolutely obsessed with his grandchildren. So he always made it a point to do activities with them. And I think the first time we all went out, it was you, me, Brooke, and Nicole, and we all went horseback riding. And that was a special memory that I remember from your first early years. I don't know who made the idea that we were supposed to allow you to try to ride your own horse. But that was it. As soon as
You know,
you fell in love with horses after that.
yes, the horses have always been a very big passion of mine. Now, two birthdays back to back when I was 4 and 5, I remember we hired ponies to come to our house for one
Mm-hmm.
of my birthdays. And that was the best thing I could have imagined. Having ponies in my backyard with a bouncy house. It was absolutely phenomenal. It was pouring down rain. I was the only one riding, and it
Mm-hmm.
was the best thing ever.
The yard was destroyed.
Yes, yes, for a long time, but I could care less. I'm like, this is the best day of my life.
Yeah.
So horses have always been an integral part of that.
Okay. So why don't you walk me through I would say the years of birth to like 11.
Oh man. Okay, so I remember when I was super young coming to the house, it back in Linwood. And I think honestly, as it is, some of my earliest memories are where I've had like core memories, and those are sad in all
Mm.
honesty. Like it hasn't all been amazing and fun and light. We will probably get into this later, but in that same Linwood house, one of the earliest things I remember is when my dad was being deployed, or
Hmm.
I don't specifically know what it was exactly, but I was sitting in my room. I was really sad and I just kept crying and crying.
Yeah,
And
yeah, you were
I
crying.
I was like bawling my eyes out, hysterical, super, super sad because I didn't want him to leave.
Was that when he was packing up all those giant bins
Yeah.
out in the living room? Yeah,
And then he had to leave that night, but we all said our goodbyes. And then he left, and I was just hysterically crying. Like I could not stop. And so I remember my mom calling him, being like, "You have to come back and like put her to bed." And so he did that, and I was asleep, and he left. And so that's one of the earliest things that I remember. I was waking up. I just woke up, and I was like, "Well, where is he?" And then just a sadness hit. But that was probably one of the biggest memories I've had in that house.
hmm,
um Again, I don't remember how old I was. I don't remember specific details. I just remember feelings, because at that young age you don't pay attention to details, you
of
just know
course.
how you feel. So that house, like I said, a lot of good memories, kids in our block, always having a good time. And then I remember moving to the first house in Marysville. um that's when I started elementary school. I was in first and second grade at one school, and then I remember transferring to a new elementary school up there. Um, in terms of, again, how I was feeling, because I was still young, I remember being pretty happy. Um, it was a good time, and I think I enjoyed school. Didn't think I really had any issues. I liked the new area I was in. Um, and yeah, I think that was in 2007,
Hmm.
2008ish. So I was
Sounds
about
about right.
yeah, I was about 7 or 8. And then let's see, that was the house where um my mom and dad separated. So I think that was at the beginning of 2008. And then I remember moving around a lot within the area. Like my mom would move around a lot, dad would move to a few other houses. Um, and that was difficult. I remember getting really good at packing because I was always in and out of houses. So I was like, okay, got to make sure I have all my schoolwork and all of that. So I remember always being, or always having to be organized and pre-plan and prepare for where I was going to be at and make sure I had all my schoolwork. And at that time, I was doing soccer. I always was active. I was in sports. So I had to make sure I had everything I needed for that. Um, and yeah, I think that goes on up until around age 11, or 2011, where I was around 11. But a few things that stand out is I was always active. I was always on the go. Even when I was in the house in Linwood, I was in ballet and I did tap dance for a short spurt of my life that I do not want to remember because I was awful.
And
And
gymnastics.
yeah, I did gymnastics. And then when we moved, I was like, okay, it's not the same sort of things. I want to get into other stuff. And that's when my horseback riding lessons started full time. And I got into that. I was in 4-H, which was phenomenal. Absolutely loved all experience of that, especially because I joined with my cousin Nicole. What a homie. Absolutely love her. She has been my ride or die. Um, and yeah, so I was always active, always on the go, always having to be organized. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, growing up in a broken home can be extremely painful and damaging for the children to have to go through. What were some of the most impactful things about that, and were there any lasting effects?
If you asked me that 5 years ago, I would say no, totally fine. It didn't affect me at all. After going through my head, if that makes any sense. So, really just stopping and slowing down and realizing the trauma that came, not just from the divorce itself and the separated home, but the effects and actions after that, I absolutely say yes. So, let's see. Initially, I acted like I didn't care. Like it was like, oh, I'm fine. Um, I was, again, young at the time, so I was like, oh, it's not. I went about the relationship as it's not my relationship, it's them. And I knew that they were fighting a lot and having issues. So if that's what they want to do, that's okay. Which is a pretty mature thing for a 9 and 10-year-old to think about, but it didn't upset me initially. I was like, okay, I know that it doesn't always work out. And my parents, of course, tried to put, or they did put me in like counseling at school and outside of school and therapy and all of that. But I didn't really care to talk to the counselors. I was like, okay, great. I get to get pulled out of like fifth grade to talk about how I feel, which is nothing.
Yeah.
So that I think is an interesting take because most of the time when the kids are older and understand, they get really upset or they go towards one parent or the other,
Mm-hmm.
which
Did
is
you like in the time when you were going to therapy and stuff like that,
mhm.
was it difficult for your parents at the time to talk to you? Do they not have all the answers or know how to deal with this, or do they not feel as equipped, or were they working in kind of in tandem with the counselor to help smooth out the process?
I don't think they knew how to process it because the feelings were so raw for them and they just wanted to make it as smooth as possible. Um, the biggest thing that they wanted me to know was that they still love me and it wasn't because of me. They obviously wanted the best for their child no matter what, which any parent would want. They never want to instill those issues or feelings or negative connotations to their kid. And so that's what they always tried to push on me. But again, for my feelings, I was like, oh, I don't care, which is kind of harsh. But I always knew that they loved me. I felt honestly kind of awkward talking to other people about it.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I don't think that they were able to work out those feelings themselves. And so when they tried to translate that and how they felt to me, it didn't get communicated clearly. But
Yeah. I know there's no book for parents on how they're supposed to deal with issues, but at the same time, no matter what you're going through, as soon as you create this child, as soon as the 9 months happens, or a lot of time there's a lot of early pregnancies in this day and age, but
yeah,
as soon as that baby pops out, you don't the clock never stops. There's no timeouts, there's no off season. You have to be a parent 24/7, and that involves being able to, in my opinion, being able to compartmentalize your emotion and discipline these emotions and put them to the side just for a second, even if you need to go in the laundry room, close the door and cry, or go outside and just do some deep breathing exercises, or scream at the world and smash the ground with a hammer like John Wick. But something you got to do to decompress and handle your children's emotions, because if you don't deal with them or teach them how to deal with their emotions, they're not going to be able to deal with. They need that equipment. They need the training. Like if you hand a 18-year-old fresh out of high school going to the army a firearm and just say, okay, you got this, go kill the bad guys, it's not going to go well. The same thing is to be said about emotions. If you don't teach your child it's okay to feel things, it's okay to be upset, it's not going to go well ever. And I didn't, like, for instance, I didn't get they never sent me to therapy for these things, or tried to even have a conversation with me about it. All I knew was I was supposed to look out for little Brienne when she's going through these emotions. Like, so for instance, you talked earlier about waking up when, and you remember him being gone.
yeah.
I had this I felt like I had this calling, these shoes I needed to fill in around the house and trying to take care of you and my mom. And I didn't always do the best job, but there was a lot of um, I just wanted to spend as much time with you as possible, and that's one of the things that I'm glad I was able to do. Um, make the best out of a tough situation.
Absolutely. And it's hard, like you were saying earlier, like it's hard when you're expected to do something and you're not given the correct tools or tools to do so, just in general. Like it's nearly impossible. And part of that is because of not only are they not giving them the tools, they don't have them. They don't know how to process that. And so trying to instill that in your children is even further difficult.
100%. So we talked about moving and transferring from different cities, because you went from one city to a completely different city. And
Yes.
you were raised around all the people that I went to school with and their children, because it was a K-8, and it was a like a co-op. So the parents came in and were super involved. What was the difference between that school and the school you went to when you came up to Marysville?
I would say it's a lot more hands off. And what I say by that is it's a lot of like depersonalization. When you have all those parents and teachers working together as a community, you get a lot more individualized and individualistic attention
Mhm.
as to what you like to do. And that comes across in how the kid feels to what they're learning and all of that. Like, for example, when we were at that K-8 school, I remember having like people from different countries come in and teach us their languages and what the culture in their country is like.
I remember we used to do the did you ever have to put your head down and then they say, "All right, we're going on a plane ride." And they shut off all
Yeah.
the lights. And while we had our heads down on the table and teachers were making sure we weren't looking, they would hang up a flag or pull up the world map or the country map of the country we were traveling to. And then when we sat up, we started that whole new process.
Yes, so
Okay.
it was a lot more immersive learning. I remember being in a cooking class there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I get to learn how to make elephant ears, and I get to take that recipe home." And it was people who I'd see outside of school teaching those, and so it was a lot more personalized, I'd say, and you get a lot more interconnectedness from that community. Um, and that by no means hinders anything at the schools in the other city. Um, it's just a different style and how kids perceive and learn and take everything in. Um, I would say once I moved, I learned how to be a little bit more structured, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's a lot more um, of the quote, like standardized testing type of ideal. So it's like you get to school, like I said, it's a lot more structured, a lot more organized. You go through, bam, 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 the school day's over, you go home and do your own thing, which to each their own. I was involved in both, and I'd still say I turned out okay. So
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
it'll it'll be what it's gonna be.
College graduate, all this stuff. Yes. So I know it can be really difficult to have, two different homes. Uh, I think a lot of parents try to push off the idea, oh, you're going to have two Christmases. It's going to be great. Is anything that parents say to smooth out a divorce or a breakup in a relationship ever make it better?
Honestly, maybe for certain times, like for certain moments. I wouldn't say it smooths over the entire process, but when you're feeling really down or upset, if you can think of, oh, well, I'm still going to be able to see them both and like during Christmas time and get presents, like, oh, that would be great. But then that goes away really quickly. And you realize all of the negative things that could come with that, like the traveling issues, the certain fighting, the memories that you would initially have together are now separated. And there, with that comes a lot of uncertainty. Like, you don't know how things are really going to be. And every living situation I was in was different. Like, yes, they might have been in certain like separate homes for a part of a time, but we were still moving around like a lot, not only between houses, but those houses and locations moved. Like I remember, what was it? I'd probably moved in the total of my life just between 2008 and like 2016, 15 different times
Oh my
between
goodness.
the two houses, or my two parents, because they were moving around a lot. And that was also a hard time economically. So there was a lot of financial adversities that came with that, which played a role, definitely. But yeah, going back to your question, every kid experiences it differently and they're going to have their own emotions. And a blanket statement of you're going to have two Christmases or it'll still be great or you're going to get to fly on a plane if they're really far apart, then they don't really help.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely struggled with it. I didn't see any positive part of it because they when they split up, it was recently and they like went for a full divorce. It was
Yeah.
just after them explaining to me that I have a father who abandoned for all intents and purposes didn't want anything to do with me, but wanted to do everything to do with me, and was in and out of jail, but he wanted to be in my life, but didn't want to be around Bill. I don't know. Like it was all really weird, and it got explained to me in a real poor way, and I was just full of confusion as it is. Um, so what does the ideal family structure on your dad's side look like? What is it that they say the family structure is, and then what actually is it?
um, if I could sum it up into a few words, I'd say it's not based in reality.
Mhm.
Um, and holding on to the past too much and not living in what it actually is and what it's developed into. Not to say that it's completely terrible, but it's not what they say it is initially. Um, there, I mean, everyone in the family's basically been divorced at least once, like give or take a few relationships, which everyone has their things, and that's not to say, oh, like they're completely terrible or they can't pick the right one. Just everything happens. Life happens, is what it is.
Yeah.
But we can't hold on to the happy times of the past when there's so many negative things going on in the present that people refuse to acknowledge or
Mm.
take on, and it goes on to hurt further relationships and causes distance.
Okay. So I know growing up I saw they had this great I think the word's matriarch is like a powerful woman that runs the show kind of thing. Yes, so there's great. Okay, I see. I'm
Yeah,
learning words. I'm
absolutely.
learning
Okay.
words. So there was
Yeah.
great, and her daughter was the mother of your father,
Yes.
and then everything branched down from there. So
Yeah.
great was the super strong black woman who lived through the most like crazy intense times. It had a bunch of um, she was really the roots of this family tree that they talked about. And how it got explained to me is that everything that she does affects everybody in a positive way. And then sadly, once she passed, everything kind of got different. Everything changed. Like all there's no more family reunion that is it's not as rooted in the culture as before. They don't do everything surrounding, like they don't have the big ass Christmas where they lay out the table and Grandma brings out every single piece of fine china the world's ever
Oh
seen,
my
and just
gosh.
goes crazy. So I'm always like, oh man, oh, really wish that there was a possibility to, you know, recreate this idea. So
Definitely. Definitely.
so having that family, you know, being able to be connected around and centered around one person, and then it completely unraveled, very very sadly, when that person passed. That shows me how fragile, you know, people who root things in tradition have it. Not that that's a bad thing, but there has to be a lot more. If everybody waters a plant at the same time, it's going to become overwatered. But if nobody waters a plant, it's going to wither and die. So there has to be a happy medium of, okay, let's have this good family structure. I know I'm at mom's side. Not everybody get along. There's a lot of I think that there's been a lot of family members who say a lot of negative things about my mom because um for a multitude of reasons, and it's always bothered me. I've never been hesitant to be extremely vocal about what I think about people because I think honesty is the best policy and the truth will set you free. So if I'm telling you that you're making a mistake as an adult at the age 8, and you don't like it and get all mad and butthurt, yeah, things get fun. So I know that in my mom's family, in our mom's family, things were just wild because there was a lot of built up a nonverbal aggression, jealousy, competition, and stuff like that. So, what did you experience from your mother's family?
I like you said, it was a lot of things. There was always something going on, whether it was drama or whatever it may be, which every family has their things. No matter, you could be the most picture perfect family on Facebook, but we all know that everyone has skeletons in
We
their
all know that Rachel
closet.
cheated last week, Jonathan.
Okay, like don't start, Karen. We all have things. You can't even trust the internet anymore. So it'll be what
Absolutely.
it's gonna be. But
Yeah, some of these
um,
Photoshop things are pretty wild. I can
yeah.
imagine can imagine what happens when you don't tell what your family is like.
Oh yeah, but I have to say I was closer with the cousins on my mom's side because they were closer in age and distance. We would see them a lot more frequently, and I did get into horses with the one of the cousins, which we're still super close as family would be. But I would say I saw a lot more um, like fighting and negative things right off, not right off the bat, but closer to home,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense. Like instead of trying to hide it as much, they would just kind of be more out in the open, which everyone, not everyone should fight in front of everyone, but you need to be honest about your problems if you need to be, and it involves other people, like you said, you've never been afraid to speak your mind or tell it how it is, which is always something I've admired about you. And
Thank
I
you.
think that more people need to be like that because not only do the kids hear it, they see it, and then they act accordingly. So,
There's definitely a big thin line between um, being over combative
yeah.
and being a coward. And I never understood the difference between those two things until I really started growing up and seeing how people bite their tongue and
Mm-hmm.
keep the love in their heart to themselves. So if I have somebody I care about a lot and someone insults them, of course I'm going to get vocal. Of course I'm going to get frustrated and only if I pick up on it. There's a lot of things I don't pick up on. I don't have the best social cues or understanding. Um, being social is not one of my skills whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working really hard at it to have some skills, but not really. I'm not. Sometimes I'm kind of tone deaf. I just walk in the room. I'm like, hey, how the fuck are we doing? Yeah, God, gas
No
costs so
answers.
much, and I make a lot of political jokes. So a lot of people get easily offended when I say my jokes. I really hate politicians altogether. So it's the people that I love, my neighbors and
Mhm.
stuff. So,
Exactly.
but
Those
being
are the.
over uh me not being combative would do a disservice to everybody around me because if I'm not being confrontational when I see a problem, I'm allowing that problem to continue and I'm directly responsible for the continuation of it. And problems like that can lead to children feeling like they're not being, they don't have any advocates or somebody in their corner. You have to confront issues. You can't run from your problems and expect them to go away. And Grandpa Charlie told me that uh, among and among so many different lessons. We'd watch a movie, we'd talk about the things we learned from it and what they did wrong, what they did right, what I just liked to watch, things that were funny, things that were sad, and I gained a lot of perspective through that, more so than with my own parents. And so
Mhm.
he really set the stage for how I'm supposed to how I who I was. And I think that if he was still here right now today, he'd be like, "Yeah, talk that shit." Yeah.
And I know he would be saying that. And I think it's really important that you had those times with him because, like we touched on earlier, that's him giving you the tools to deal with feelings
Mhm.
and emotions. And whether it involves adults, other kids, your peers, people older than you, younger than you need to have those to live a mindful life, which
Absolutely.
so many people neglect.
Oh
So,
God, so many people. I still cry. I remember the first time I watched Black Hawk Down,
oh,
I cried at the end of it, and Grandpa Charlie was like, "It's okay, you can cry."
mm-hmm.
And
Not
then the first time I ever dealt with racism, I ended up watching Roots with Grandpa Charlie afterwards, and I I started taking things very seriously from that moment in my
yeah.
life. Like what I learned the difference between a joke and between someone being a racist fuck. So I was completely fine with being confrontational when I started encountering things like that. Have you ever encountered any racism or anything? I'm not saying let's all be victims and say that everybody's racist, but I am saying, have you ever experienced someone truly trying to degrade you or make you a second class human being?
Honestly, no.
That's good.
And yes, thankfully, no. That is, people always say, like, oh, it's over, like, it's not around anymore. It's still prevalent.
Very
It's
relevant.
it's still around. Just because you don't hear it or see it every day or it's not spoken doesn't mean that it's gone forever. or
Just like herpes.
oh my god. Oh my
Oh
god.
man.
But one thing that was instilled for me from a young age, because my parents were a biracial couple, is that's something we always have to be aware of. Be we have to have a lot of situational awareness. We have to know what's right and wrong in terms of the comments that are made to us, and like you were saying, knowing the difference between a joke and taking it too far. So I mean, my parents were talking to me about that since I was in school, so I was always aware of, or at least I had knowledge of what that would look like, but thankfully I never experienced it, and I have never seen anyone. Well, mm, yeah, I myself have never experienced it, and I haven't seen anyone in my um, close like friend group at school or anything like that. Because if I did, again, I would step up and say something, because that's not okay, and everyone needs to be aware of what's going on around them, not just what's going on with themselves. Because again, you can step in and say something. You can bring it to someone else's attention. There's always something you can do to alleviate those issues because they're still around.
Absolutely. They definitely are. So you're growing up, you're experiencing new things, you're recognizing a lot of things that you're not going to bring on to your own children. What are some of the things you realize in the early stages of your life, that you think that, like, parental qualities or family traits that are not going to be something you bring to your children, and why?
What a big topic. I was waiting for this one. Oh man, several things. Growing up, it wasn't always great. I wasn't always in the best of situations. And in terms of family and home life, and what I don't want my kids or anyone else in my family to experience, it's a lot. I'd say one of the biggest things, and we've kind of been touching on it the whole time, is learning how to not only deal with your emotions, but deal with your emotions and relationships in your life. And that starts with yourself. Um, uh, just a little backstory. So, this past 2.5 years with COVID and everything, I had the opportunity to work in agriculture. And it was a job where I was alone walking vineyards for 16 hours a day. And up
God,
in,
that must suck. Oh, I would hate
oh,
to do
it
that.
was it
How
was
amazing is that? What?
it was very hot, but I gained so much character from it, and it opened my eyes to everything, all the technicalities and advancements that go into agriculture and farming and everything. So that's a whole nother topic, but probably the best times I've had working in just gut wrenching hard work. And I was like, wow, I have so much admiration for everyone in this field. Anyways, my whole life up until that point had always been go, go, go. It was always be focused on the future, don't get distracted, like think 4 steps ahead so that your future is easier. That's been the essence of my life. And when the whole world stops, it's hard to not stay busy. And so when I was walking, I just started thinking, because I am a big overthinker. Everyone probably already knows I'm in my head all the time thinking, because
Spiral out, yeah.
yes, because you always want to be prepared. You want to meet or exceed expectations. Like that's always been how it has been growing up. So when I had this time to stop and think, I started going through my own head, which is scary. You start thinking about what you endured as a kid, and is that normal, or was that something that is completely out of the blue that no one should ever experience? And I found myself laughing. I found myself bawling my eyes out, because it's like, well, what, like, I didn't even know that I could feel this way, because the feelings were shoved down for so long and compartmentalized, and you don't feel them because you want to keep yourself distracted and busy. So once I was able to start going through my head and realizing, oh, that's not normal, that was trauma, a lot of things started to come out. So, one of the biggest things that I want to instill for my kids is to slow down, or even other people around me, is to learn that it's okay. This is gonna be so cliche, but it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And recognizing that those things were hard, and it's okay to even feel this way down the road because you weren't able to understand what was going on back then. So by learning how to reflect on your life and talk to people and like bringing that back up is a whole nother action, and it's hard, but it's necessary. So I want to instill in my kids that it's okay to talk about big things early on, or it's okay to talk about how you feel even if you might not know how you feel in that moment, or
Yeah.
how things make you are. But yeah, so that's the first big thing I would do. And the other is transparency. I will make sure that my kids understand what's going on in my life. Or I guess I didn't say that right. So like even before I have kids, I want to make sure that I am at the capacity to do so. I don't want to have anything or negative connotations hanging over my head before I bring other people into this world with my amazing husband to be, like obviously stuff comes up and life happens and you're going to go through that, but I want my kids to see within reason how I go through that, because that teaches them a lesson, not so much as, oh, I'm going to teach you a lesson and discipline you. It's okay, we're going through this difficult thing. I'm going to be transparent about how I feel, and hopefully you'll take something away from it that you can use down the road.
Given the tools
Now,
to
with
kids.
exactly, and not, but that's a double-edged sword, because I say within reason due to the amount of stress that could put on a kid. Because yes, you want to be transparent, but you don't want to do it in a way that puts the pressure on them to fix it or cope with you trying to fix it, if that makes any sense. Because I mean, like I said, growing up, there was a lot of hard times, and my parents would talk to me about it. Most of the time, it was due to financial things in general. And I felt like it was by them telling me it was almost my responsibility to not only help, but to help them feel better. And that suppresses a lot of things in my mind and hinders what I do in my childhood, because that leads to kids growing up too fast, not fully understanding what it's like to enjoy their childhood or explore new things or be happy. So there's a lot of things that can go along with that, and being so transparent and open and honest, but it's your duty, I think, as a parent to know the difference of helping or hindering.
Helping or
So
hindering, yeah.
um, just being able to deal with your emotions, be transparent, and doing the best you can. There's, like you said, there's no rule book to parenting. No one knows what the heck to do. Everyone feels lost at times, but if you can navigate that and bring those lessons onto your children and everyone in your life, even if it's like a relative, then you're doing something, and I think that matters, because putting too much stress leads to several things that I wouldn't want anyone else to experience, So
100%. Yeah, heavy stress as a child, it will completely cripple you. I noticed so many issues about me being if I don't have $1,000 like in my bank account, just a fuck off money, I feel super uncomfortable all the time, and it never ever gets better. If I were to add the current like 18% level of inflation, I would say I need at least like $5,000 just in case, because you never know. You never know. So it's really difficult for a lot of parents to grasp um, that they're always being watched. They're always like, I know that people talk about Santa Claus seeing you when you're sleeping, knows when you're awake. Kids always do the same exact thing. They're sitting here trying to learn, mimic, and emulate the same exact person that their parents are, but a little bit better, because that's what they tell us, right? We want you to be better than us, right? So when you're working towards this image of pleasing your parent, there's a lot of stress that comes with that, and it doesn't always help when the examples aren't a clear cut standard. And I think the important thing that I don't carry to my children are, or the important things are, hypocrisy is number one on my list. That is the king pet peeve that I have from any human being ever around me. I can't sit around somebody who says they are going to be there for you and not be there, or, and that's just generalizing. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but one of the big things for me as well is that you communicate when you're hurting. Not everybody, and to seek help. And that doesn't mean with therapy. That doesn't mean with alcohol. That doesn't mean with weed. You don't just, I'm having a bad day, let me smoke a joint. That is a negative idea. Or I'm having a bad day, I need a drink. No, bad. I'm having a bad day. Oh, God, I'm going to go punch walls and hurt my hands. Not a positive thing. And they all do the same thing. One, you're just punching the wall, and another, you're just punching your inside of your body, and you're learning to take that emotion and just throw it into something else instead of investing it and walking through it and talking through it.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, no, absolutely. And then while you were talking, this just came up. Couple other things that I want to instill is not disciplining out of fear, because that can lead to them, children just wanting to be perfect all the time. And you want to discipline them out of goodwill. So, if that, I don't know how to
Can you give me just a bland example of what that means?
Yeah. So like, I want to discipline and treat my kids and show them that I'm not above them or that I am better than them. I'm doing it because I want to expect more out of myself and how I want them to act because of that, if that makes any sense. Like, I want to not discipline them because I feel like I'm above them or better, or because I'm their parent or whatever it may be. Like, if I am too out of line, I want them to recognize that. Or if they feel that they're being treated unfairly, I want them to be able to come to me and say that and not be scared, because I feel a lot of parents are put in that role of like disciplinary instead of
guiding and molding the child.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing for the military as well. A big leadership issue that I realize is a lot of people hand out punishments or judgment, or they treat you a certain way to make sure that they feel comfortable in their spot of authority. And an authoritarian regime is never a positive thing. Like, we are, as humans, we're Americans. We live in a democratic republic, and that means that we talk through issues and then we elect certain officials to handle issues. And in a house, there's not very many people to elect. So everybody needs to have a voice. Everybody needs to do it correctly. Like, hey, I love you and you're my parent, but I'll tell you this, we're not going to have the best relationship past me being able to take care of myself if you don't treat me like a human being, or treat me like you want me to be great. If you want me to be great, you're not going to say, hey, I'm the dad or I'm the mom and you're the kid, and listen, respect my authority.
Exactly.
There's nothing positive about that. Saying, hey, you need to respect me because of this, 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 and this. And when you make a mistake, this is how I want to approach it as a when with my children. Hey, you're making a horrible mistake, and to teach you why we're making the mistake, we're going to have you go through this period of suffering. And it doesn't have to be like a physical spanking or whatever, right? But we're going to go through this period of suffering. You're going to do physical labor or exercise until you have felt the repercussions of these actions. So once we can do that, we're going to talk about why we did the actions and why it was necessary and the lesson behind it. And I don't give a shit if it takes 3 hours, you're going to get the message.
Exactly.
But not a 2-minute spanking and just being mad at your kid and being all worked up is not a positive way to teach.
Yeah, I don't think the kid really gets anything out of that. Not to say that it's not necessary in certain aspects, but it's going to be clearly decided beforehand. So, no, I completely agree.
Like, I remember your dad smacking you on the hand and saying, die dice.
Oh, did I?
I was like, what the hell? One time I said it. One time I was a kid. I said, what the hell is dice? How is she gonna understand that? She barely speaks English. And you
No, I knew what that mean. Or like my middle name. If my middle name came out, it was all over.
Yeah, oh God.
Yeah.
There's so many different parenting styles out there. And I often receive a lot of criticism from people who are parents, like, oh, it's not gonna be that easy, or it's blah blah blah. Well, have you tried any other way other than your current approach? And the answer is usually like a deafening silence. Because
Yeah.
listen, my way or the highway doesn't always work. You have to be willing to try new things and be open. And that's the previous generation before us are horrible at being open to new things. They don't do well with change or anything that goes against, like they're horrible with it. They're like, well, oh, it's not going to be like that when you have kids. That the fucking ain't. The fucking ain't. Yes, it will, because I'm going to try. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to find a different way to try to achieve my goal. There's no A to B when having kids.
No. And the thing is, you can have 4 kids in the same household and they all have to be approached differently. Like what works for one isn't going to work for the other. And obviously I'm not speaking from experience. All I have is a fur child right now, which thank goodness, love little Willis.
But at the same time, you do have a voice, and you know what you don't want, and you know what you didn't like about what happened to you and your friends.
And this isn't to criticize parents. Every parent or person that I've talked to just wants to be better. It's like, I want you to have a better life than I had. And I have to say, like, through the generations, yes, it's improved, but not in all aspects, not in all 7 ways.
So there are 7 ways.
Yes, there are. Wait. Oh, 5 ways.
Okay, excuse me, 5 ways. So what are these 5? I must know now.
Okay, so it's mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and financially.
Okay.
I think those, that's what it was instilled in me when I was a child. That's what I am slowly learning in my adult life. And as I become older in the world, you can be the richest person in the world, but if you don't have a good relationship, then you feel empty. You have to fill up all 5 cups to, I think, be successful in this world. And that means a lot of different things to different people, because money is the easiest thing to get. Having a solid relationship, having a healthy mind, knowing how to take care of yourself, those are the things that you can't buy, and you have to learn. That you can't buy. You can't go get it at a store. If everybody did, then we'd all be perfect people, which obviously is not the case because no one's perfect. But I think I always keep those 5 things in the back of my mind, because if I'm failing at one or having an issue in my life, I realize it's because I'm not keeping all those things at the front of my brain.
100%. So. Wow. Well, that's a pretty great way to look at life. I've always thought you were extremely bright, and I knew you are going to be a great mom. You're already a great person because you recognize your faults and you work on them. You don't need to be a superstar and just be this heroic figure of the United States military or the entire world to be a great person. All you have to do is try to get better every day. But if you accept your current position of not knowing how to do something or not knowing how to handle a situation, and you rely on somebody else, you're subject to their approval or their change or their help or their influence. Or if you are stuck in the same route in your life and you're just like, I don't know how to get through this, I should do nothing. That is like the worst quality to have.
Yeah.
And it's tied in directly with insanity. You have to, and some people I've heard multiple times, and it's been used in a lot of books that I've read, that to commit to change, you need your current situation to be worse than what the steps you need to take to have self-betterment. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. I completely get what you're saying. And not to bring in economics, but in econ, that's what we call a negative feedback loop. So
yes. Negative feedback loop. What is a negative feedback loop?
Essentially, it's a perpetual ball of negativity. So if, say, you're feeling bad one day, like you wake up, it's already not going to be a great morning. If you focus on the negative thing, then maybe you forget your coffee when you're going out the door. Oh, that's another negative thing. I hate this day. And then you start blaming not only yourself, but you start blaming the world, and the negativity just continues and perpetuates into a giant bowling ball of crap that you feel terrible about. And
it's similar to the snowball effect, but
yes,
with negativity.
exactly.
Okay.
And unless you can focus on one positive thing or just something else to change that negative feedback that feeds another, then it's just going to continue. And that's when people start to get really down, and it's a hard time, and it's not easy to get out of that. You know, there are positive feedback loops, like even
I
if
love those. It's
yes,
so much
it's like
fun.
when you start to get like all the confidence and you're like, oh, this is gonna be a great day. Even if something small happens that might hinder your day, you still focus on the positive and you can get over that. Not to say that like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna wake up and be positive every single day. That's not life. Everyone
That's
has
living in a
shit
false
days.
reality.
Yeah. So as long as you can try and find something good out of the day, that's what matters. I personally wake up and I say three things I'm grateful for to practice gratitude, because not enough people do that. And then I pray for three things out of the day. Now, I am not the most religious individual in the world, but I do think there's a higher power out there, and not everyone has to think that. But I do. And so I find three things I'm grateful for to start the day off positively. And it could be the smallest thing. I'm like, oh, I'm thankful I woke up. Or I'm thankful I have makeup to be able to put on a good face to go to work. I'm grateful I have water. Just small things to really ground yourself in what is real. And then I say three things I um, want to be positive. So I hope I'm productive at work. I hope my family members are doing well. And just those three things just kind of get the day going for me.
That's
So it's a good
awesome.
practice.
Yeah, I'm gonna start doing that. I can name three things I'm grateful for right now: my wife, my house, my dogs, and I could say three things I want: more money, more guns, and more freedom.
Right. And it doesn't have to be like a big thing. Like I just take on my drive to work, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to take like a minute and think about it. And even that small change will do something, because it starts with something small. You can't just wake up and instantly be a better person. It takes practice and consciousness to do so, which is almost the most difficult.
Oh God, definitely. It's hard to look in the mirror and say, "Oh, I don't like what I see. Let's improve upon it." But that is the number one thing I try to express to people when they come to me with fitness goals. I have them do an exercise, and it's an exercise that a lot of people get uncomfortable when I talk about. But I tell them, okay, so you want to change something, right? Why don't you go in the mirror right now, take off all your clothes, and look at what your body looks like? If you don't like what you see, ask yourself why you haven't done anything prior to this to change that. And then my favorite thing is, okay, now I'm crying. Why did you make me do this exercise? I said, no, I did this because to remind yourself of your self-worth. You're crying right now because you want to be better, and you know deep down beyond your every fiber of your being that you deserve to love yourself more. And so it starts right here with acknowledging we're at ground zero as far as self-love. Because if you don't love what you look like, you're probably not going to like what you don't see. So we're at ground zero. We start to set these building blocks. Okay, let's first we change the diet, then we change the fitness plan, and then we slowly attack things, and it builds and builds and builds. And next thing you know, oh my goodness, I can see a physical change in my body, and that spirals into this beautiful, great, beautiful wall of positivity, and it protects you from the all the negative aspects.
Yeah. And not only positivity, but confidence. You
Yeah.
know, I would have to say that body image is one thing that I have struggled with and continue to struggle with every second of every day.
Well, your eyebrows look great. Don't even worry about it.
Thank you. Thank you. I try to do them. I do them myself.
Yeah,
So.
I'm gonna take a leaf out of your book and see my wife Rhiannon. Obviously, she's great with doing hair. I was like, she's like, "Do you want me to do your eyebrows?" And I said, "I don't know. I've been scrubbing for a while. I think I'm done with it. I think I'm done
Yes.
with it. I might let her go to town."
But no, it's definitely one thing that I constantly struggle with. And it's not easy because everything in the physical world is made for us to not, I shouldn't say everything, but most things in our daily life are made to make us ignore, forget, or be for like not aware of it, like social media, scrolling on our phones, scrolling on our laptops, and this, I don't know, going off on a little tangent, but everything is made to make us numb and want what we don't have, which also is why I practice gratitude. And like, I'm not really on Instagram because social media in itself is such a hindrance to what reality can be, and it feeds um, things that I don't want to have in my life all the time. So
Sweet.
that's
Yeah,
one thing.
I definitely want to try to do that. Obviously I use social media for as tools to help other people improve mental health and learn. And I don't use it as a way to feel good about myself, because if you base how you feel off of a digital world, nothing is real there. Like, I don't care what anybody says. You can make real money. I get it. You can make real interactions with people, and a lot of my interactions online turn into real ones in real life, which is awesome. But there's a lot of people out there who are judging and basing how they feel about themselves off of their likes, the followers, and they'll do ridiculous things to get attention instead of seeking for self-love, looking inward. And that's something else I want to give to my children: self-love. It's important for me, especially if I have a daughter. This is the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my life, to walk her in front of the mirror and have her tell herself she's beautiful, tell herself that she's loved, tell herself that it doesn't matter, she doesn't need makeup. Like, an exercise that I want to do regularly, a mental and physical exercise, is to shoot makeup. Willis, come on,
Sorry,
buddy.
that's my
But
assistant. Sorry.
but to shoot makeup when we go shooting, because my children are going to be very involved in firearms, especially from a young age, so that we can not have any poor gun related incidents, or so we don't have the curiosity that leads to, oh, I wonder where the key to the safe is, so I can look at the guns and play with them. And it's not good things. And to live in a prepared house, you want to have guns that can be loaded quickly. I don't want to lead to gun related incidents.
Exactly. No, and that's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please continue.
No, I completely agree. And I probably misspoke when I talked about all the negative things that social media can come with.
No, it's probably a lot honest.
No, I definitely agree. Like, it's absolutely such a useful tool with connecting people and spreading positive and like positivity and all the good things that can come from it.
It can is the key right there. Yeah.
Yes. I didn't mean to make a blanket statement as, oh, everything's bad. There are some great aspects, but I think too many people find their self-worth and their value in it, which is not healthy.
It's extremely harmful. Like, no matter how you look at it, I've seen people go insane, completely insane, off of getting attention off people who aren't there, and they'll do ridiculous things. And it definitely does bother me.
But no, I've definitely seen those videos of like the dads and the little girl standing in front of the mirror saying like, oh, the positive affirmations of I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I am intelligent, I am a thinker, and all of that. And I think that's immensely integral in a kid's development, in anyone's development. I should be saying that. I mean, so
I definitely don't say I love myself enough, but yeah. I do practice forms of self-love, one of which is exercise, one of which is setting extreme boundaries, which is the next thing we're going to get into. Boundaries, setting boundaries for yourself is probably going to be my favorite topic that we get to. But setting boundaries, just to blandly go over it, like, hey, I'd really love to eat pizza today, but I really care about how I feel about my appearance and the importance of being healthy more. I don't want to clog my arteries. Or, hey, I really love sugar, but I don't want to become a pre-diabetic. And hey, I'd love to eat like shit, but I don't want to, have it lead to me looking like shit. And we are all what we eat. So I tend to eat nice healthy portions of excellence and greatness. And no, I'm joking. But
I wish, where can I get some?
Yeah, but setting boundaries is good. Like, I don't enjoy watching too much TV. I try to stay away from it. I try to do other things that make my brain think and challenge my artistic skills.
Yeah.
In any game that I play, I want it to have something to directly affect me in real life. So limiting video games, limiting time on YouTube, limiting even limiting time with your family and your partner to a certain extent can be beneficial, but can also be very harmful. So if I spend too much time like crowding my wife when she's in a focus time, when it's time to do her studying or stuff like that, it'll disrupt her education. So I need to set those boundaries. No matter how many time I spent for her when I was deployed, and I know I love my mom. I know I love my dad. I know I love my sister, but I need to make sure my sister is thriving and challenging herself every day in California, and that I can't spend as much time as I want to with my parents because they did some shit and it really fucked me up and bothered me. So I got to make sure that I'm not doing that. And yeah, setting healthy boundaries is important.
Are you thinking about making a podcast? Spotify has a platform that lets you make one, and if I can figure it out, you definitely can too. You can create your own content all in one place for free with zero hangups and even earn money as soon as you get started. Spotify lets you record and edit episodes from your phone or computer so you can go mobile, just like I enjoy to do. My favorite thing about it is that you can create video episodes if you wish and upload them to wherever podcasts are heard. You can even set up subscriptions or, if you're like me, listener support options for listeners to help you grow. I 10 out of 10 recommend the Spotify for Podcasters app. Or, why don't you just step over to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your own podcast.
So setting boundaries, what does that look for you? Because setting boundaries is a way of starting self-love.
Yes. So I have learned that not only setting boundaries, but boundaries can be healthy. Okay. Not only for you, but for other individuals, because that is a very big topic that I learned while I was in college. In terms of having to deal with both my parents and all of that. But setting boundaries means you care about yourself, in all honesty, because that's what it comes down to. You not only set boundaries to like keep other people, not boundaries aren't only to keep other people out, but it's to preserve your self-worth, how you feel, and really your entire life. Because if you let too many people walk all over you or do things that make you not feel good, then everything else in your life takes over and you feel like you have no control.
Yeah, and that can be a horrible feeling too. Really stressful.
Absolutely. And that can lead to a lot of other things. And then that's when people feel powerless. They feel like other things are guiding their life, whether that's in terms of addiction, other relationships, and everything,
Or expectations, like you brought up before. I think there's a big connection between the word family. It can be a great thing that's so important in our lives. It can also be something that you use as a crutch to meet expected obligations that you feel that your family should show up to. Like, so one thing that I try to do when I'm setting my boundaries, I say, I really don't want to go to this.
Mm-hmm.
If I know that if I'm going to be pissed off the entire time there because I'm around somebody who constantly does things that I wouldn't want these people around my children, some people that are in my family. So why would I want to hang around them right now? Like, I'm years out from having kids. Like, almost like next year, as soon as Rihanna's knees healed, we're popping out the babies. Pew, 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 pew. Like at least 12 of them. At least 12.
Oh
and you know what? If she only wants to carry 2, I'll carry the rest. Facebook said I could. So
we all know everything Facebook says is true.
Oh, we all know it. It's the only way.
Yeah.
But that's one of my healthy boundaries. I say, okay, this is an obligation because they were told their whole life it was an obligation to show up to this. It's not because they want to be there, and I'm not going to do it. No, I'm not. And you know what? It takes one person to stick their hand in the fire so others' hands won't get burnt, and you'll start to notice these things around the people once you say these things. For those who do not, how many other people don't want to go because they just don't understand that level of self-worth. Like, I know I'm not going to be happy if I go to this, so I'm not going to go. I know I like me personally, I can say this, and this is probably an extreme comparison, but sometimes you need those. I wouldn't want to do meth or heroin. So I don't do them. You can take that and apply it to anything. I don't like to dance at a wedding when I don't like the people there, so I'm not going to do it. Or I don't like to sing in front of people because my voice changed octaves throughout high school, so I'm not going to when I used to be in choir and all these events and stuff. So these
Mm.
boundaries are essential. So what other boundaries do you set?
Um, I set several boundaries, like I said, and it's also living through them and having the example of other people being able to set them, kind of like how you were saying, and then other people begin to think like, oh, that's okay. Number one, just because they're blood does not mean they're family.
That's
Let's,
right.
let's
Yes,
start
Lord, air it out.
you can choose your family, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. Just because you're quote related by blood doesn't mean that you have to bend to their every will and need. That's the biggest boundary that I've probably learned, and I have to say a lot of that is because of the role model that I had in my life, which was you, because you would always come to me and be like, well, if you don't want to do it, why do you do it? And I'm like, well, because I feel like I have to. And giving, and by me even putting that out in the world, that gives other people the power and takes away from myself. Because it's like, well, why would you want your kid to do that? No. Well, then why are you setting that example? You know?
100%.
So setting boundaries with family in terms of who I want to be around, who um, who I allow in my life. And that's not coming from a conceited place. It's not like, oh, I'm so great and I'm not going to allow them. It's no, you haven't done anything positive, or you haven't helped me or made me feel better. So why would I want to be around you?
Or your kids for that point. Because yeah,
Exactly.
at some point we all become servants of the world, and it could be like a couple people, like our families, like if we're a mother or a father or whatever, we have to look out for our little flock. And if you're not going to help them grow into great people, why would we want to be around you as an individual right now? Absolutely not.
Yeah. So definitely boundaries with family, close relatives, and that can look like a lot of things. Boundaries aren't just, oh, I'm not going to show up. It can be to the extreme of, okay, well, you've affected me in this way for so long, and I've tried to voice that. I'm done.
Mhm. Yes.
Because I have to do that for myself and what I want for my future. And that's what I found myself doing a lot when I was in college, because it's in college is such an interesting time because you're trying to mold yourself. And this was also the time when I talked about earlier, I was walking fields. So I was trying to process my past while bettering my future while still keeping everything up in school. And it can be so much that you are forced to focus on yourself because you want the best for your future. And that means not talking to some people. That means acknowledging that they hurt you, and you're only going to accept what you want to accept, not because you have to. It's because you want them in your life, not because they have to be in your life, or the expectation is there that they did so much for you that they have to be in your life. You can't rely on the past to like propel you into the future. It has to be an ongoing conscious decision. And so setting those boundaries help you focus your energy on what you have to, you know. Also boundaries with myself, like going to the gym in school. So I would wake up at 3 a.m., go to work at 4 a.m., work until 9 a.m., go to class all day. And I knew I still wanted to better my self image and feel good. And so I'd go home for an hour and go back to the gym. And when I went home for that hour to change, it'd be like, oh, I really don't want to go back. But I set that boundary of, I want to get some exercise. I want to feel good about myself. And to do that, I have to go to the gym. And so I would go and then come back. But it's setting the structure you want for your life, which I think college gave me the room to do that, which is phenomenal. And that's not for everyone. I'm not saying you have to go to college to feel all these things and do the boundaries. That's what worked for me, and that's where I learned to do that, and that it was okay to do that. Also because of the role models I've had in my life. So
Absolutely.
boundaries,
Self-isolation will always lead to self-growth. I mean, I know people that don't take, well, it's completely relative to whether you take it or not. So you have to take it seriously as that self-isolation period. And if for me, for example, I was away from my wife for so long, who was my girlfriend at the time, and then became my wife. I was away from my sister. I was away from my mom. I was away from my dad. I was away from my stepdad. I was away from everybody. I was trapped in a world where none of my family or friends are there, like literally 3,000 miles away at least. So I didn't have those people around me to influence me. I was able to influence myself and set my own boundaries and decide who I want to be. And self-isolation is self-growth. The best advice I can ever give to anybody is get the ever-loving fuck away from where you are with your family, and it doesn't matter how close you are, get away from them. You need to get away from them. You cannot always be right there. You can't always be close with your family and your friends, because you will always be influenced, and that goes for positively and negatively by everything they do, whether it's installing guilt trips, power flexes, whatever it is.
gaslighting.
Yes, it's all gonna, and it's gonna affect you very heavily, because these people have been affecting you since you were a child. Affect yourself. Try that out, and you will. And that, for a lot of people, I know that might sound jaded. Just me. That's just me being self-aware, but is honest to God and tried and true for every single person who left with me. Everybody was working on themselves, and you don't really find out who the fuck you are unless you do. You need to self-isolation. You need to walk those vineyards in California. Leave. Go to the vineyards. I'm going to the vineyards. I'm about to start walking right now.
No, and it can be as simple as taking a walk with just yourself. Like, don't listen to music. You can sit in a corner. You can sit in a room and shut the door. Like, just being with yourself is the hardest person to be with, because you might not even know what you're being influenced by until all that noise shuts off.
Mm-hmm.
And that is when you learn how to, or just that you need to deal with yourself and work on yourself so that you can be a better person overall. And that's the most valuable thing that I have ever learned, probably in my life. I always remember my dad's mom, Grandma, God love her. She is phenomenal. I remember sitting I was 16, 17, and she sat me down and she's like, Bree Bree. And I was like, yes. She's like, you need to slow down. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm sitting down. Like, because I was always on the go. I was in 3 sports. I had 2 jobs. I was sometimes not sleeping. I was always
burning out
to stay busy. There was a period of time where I was up for 72 straight hours.
Yeah.
In high school. And I was just
called sleep drunk.
Yeah.
You're walking around and everything is all jacked up. It's worse than being drunk.
Mm-hmm, because you just instantly start falling asleep, and then you wake up and you're like, what happened? Because you didn't know you fall asleep.
Your chest is warm. You're thinking weird thoughts.
Yeah, she
Hard
sat
to
me
balance.
down and she's like, you need to slow down. And I didn't know what that meant until I was alone by myself doing that self-reflection. And that's the most important thing. Now, another thing that's motivated me since I was probably about 13 is something that someone you told me to listen to. I remember you were in high school playing football. I came to your games and I was like, wow, he's like so motivated all the time. And that's the point I started to getting really into school sports, like track and cross country. And I was like, how do you stay motivated? Like, how do you get pumped up? Like, I always want to better myself. Like, I don't know what to do. And you've always guided me. And you told me to listen to Eric Thomas.
He's the guy.
And I still listen to him to this day.
To this day,
he is the best motivational speaker. And I'm not saying that you have to go listen to him, but he has motivated me in the times where I've been at my darkest and weakest. So just being able to pull yourself out of that, sometimes you need a lot of help, and having those people in my life to do that are immensely helpful. And I couldn't do that without realizing and spending time just by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I'm glad to have played any part in your life.
oh,
You're one of the most phenomenal human beings that I've ever had the distinct pleasure of being around. So there's a lot that can be said for things that inspire you. And inspiration is a huge thing. One person that inspired me to go to the military was your father. Seeing the level of importance surrounding him going into the military, where he donned his military uniform, how he came home and still tried to read to you after working all weekend, and it would be like he'll get home whenever he gets home, and he's falling asleep on his knees with his torso on the bed, and it always makes me laugh when my dog does the same thing. He'll Brutus will climb on the bed, his back legs stay down because he's a lazy bum, but he'll like half crawl on the bed, and then he'll just go and your dad used to do that, but reading books, and then I'd come in the room and finish reading the books, and try to get him to bed.
Yeah.
So he doesn't snore and wake you up.
So stubborn.
He's so stubborn. He always like, no, I got this.
I'm fine. I'm fine. And then he'd be asleep 2 minutes later.
Yeah.
But whether it was
oh man,
family story or reading me a story, absolutely.
It was my favorite book he read to you was the Froggy with the swimming and the frog one where he's learning how to swim. So that really stood out to me.
This is odd question, but do you remember the butter story that he would tell?
Yes, I remember the butter story. That was a good one. But my favorite story is Uncle Harlan getting his ass whipped by Great for being bad, and all the kids were getting the ass whippings because they stayed out past dark, and when the lights come on. And it's really crazy about that. The reason why parents are so freaked out about the lights coming on, especially Black parents, is because of sundown towns. Did you know that?
No.
So a sundown town is when if the suns were down and you had a skin color that was other than white, you're probably looking at being lynched. And this is not something that's new. It's been going on, and it continues to go on in this day in America. So that is a big reason why people used to freak out about the lights coming on. If you're not home, if you're Black and you're not home by the lights coming on, your children could be lynched. And that was something that I never really it was never really spoken about, and that's that trauma shit that is completely invested in how we teach our children. And one thing I'm going to teach my kid is you stay out whenever the fuck you want, okay? Because that don't happen where I'm not going to live where my kids can't stay out. And it's so important. It's so important to let children be children. What do you think about staying out after dark for your kids? Is that a thing?
It absolutely will be a thing. Depending on what age, you know.
Obviously not like a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
You're fine. Just stay outside. Again, I will be living in an area where kids can stay out after dark too. And so I'm fine with it within reason, and as long as they communicate. You know, I am gonna give my kids the best tools that I can give them, and then they're going to make their own decisions. Whether, you know, I'm not just going to like leave them high and dry. I'm going to teach them the difference between right and wrong, but I'm not going to
be a helicopter parent.
Yeah. And do all of that because I think it does them a disservice and just teaches them to be more sneaky, and then they make worse mistakes as they're older. So it'll be what it's going to be. But yeah, my kids can stay out after dark within reason.
My kids can stay out after dark too. I think it's important. So obviously you have an okay relationship with my wife and my partner in my entire life, Rhiannon. I wouldn't even call her my wife anymore. I mean, one time she was like my girlfriend, and then I was like, I'm gonna be with her forever. And then we signed some court documents. Big mistake. We should just stay together anyways. Why even go through the process? But we solidified our relationship, and you were a major part of that. What is there an importance of having a relationship with a sibling and their partner, if you're close with that sibling, because I know people like I'm not close with my brother or my alleged sister on the other side,
Right.
and their relationship is not something that I even have with them. So, like, is it important to have a relationship with your sibling's partner as well as just your sibling?
I think it enhances all of the interconnected relationships. So I would say absolutely it's important, or at least it definitely helps. I think that, I mean, I absolutely adore Brienne and she's phenomenal. The second I met her, I knew we're best friends. It's like she's the sister I never had. So I absolutely love her to death, both of you guys. And I think it has only made all of our relationships stronger. Now, the other side of that, do I think it's absolutely necessary? No, because even if um, her and I didn't have a good relationship, I would still love you to death and all of that. But I definitely think it enhances this picture of family, quote unquote. And I think it is super important because not only do I have an amazing brother who's a role model, but I also gained a sister, you know? So I think it's a very important part to have a good working relationship with your siblings partner.
I definitely agree. Like I can say that Brandon's awesome. There's nothing about him that I could honestly say I don't admire and think is just a rock solid. One, he's just a rock solid dude, and two, how he treats you is, I think that's like the hope for every single father, brother, uncle. Like if you're a male figure and you care about a woman figure in your life, you want her to be treated how he treats you. And seeing your
Oh,
guys' relationship develop is one of the distinct pleasures of, even if from a distance, I'm like I always get excited, like, oh, they got a dog, slick,
yeah.
slick.
Oh, it's so sweet. So,
Yes,
so
and
sweet.
even though your dog bit my face when I tried to give him a kiss
You know, you're
in the
just
car,
intimidating. You're an intimidating guy.
you know
You
what?
gotta let Willis approach you.
It's okay. Willis is gonna submit. That's what he's gonna do. He's gonna receive my love, or I'm gonna die trying. Okay, so what about for your parents' parties? Because we obviously come from a broken home. It's no secret. How
Yes.
important is it for parents to make sure that their partner is being great to their children, or if it's not happening, can that drive a serious wedge between the two? Because I know, like, we know my mom's had a bunch of different relationships since uh since our parents broke up.
Yes.
So how important is it for the partner's parents to kind of connect?
I think it's very important. I think all parents going into a new relationship, whether that's marriage or just boyfriend girlfriend situation, whatever it may be, I think that you have to be selective of who you bring into your child's life. Now, I would say, in a general sense, parents are fairly aware of that. Um, Give or take, or at least they don't want to hinder their child in any way. But things happen. Again, life happens. I do think that um, if they don't fully support or do anything like that, it can drive a wedge. And it might not be right off the bat, it might be later down the road, but parents have to know um, that boundary. Again, we bring up boundaries. We have to know that um, and be perceptive of how the kid is feeling, how they're acting, and their body language, because there's a lot of nonverbal communication that can be seen and spoken for, and the parent has to step up and recognize, like, oh, what's going on? Like, are you okay? Have a heart to heart, not with their significant other around, but really just um, have a normal conversation. And you can't be scared to have those conversations, especially if you're bringing other individuals into your kid's life. You have to know that things might get uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
for you and your child, but you have to do that because it's necessary for their development, whether they're young, whether they're old. It's super important for their mental health. Like, you have to be aware and there for your kid no matter what. And when you're not, bad things can happen.
Yeah. I think it's super important. Like hopefully I don't me and Rihanna don't plan on just having a breakup or letting
I won't
anything
allow it.
really
I won't
really
allow
okay, me either. But
it.
I told her we're going to the grave together and no matter what that brings. No, I'm joking. That's just a joke. I really would
Oh,
never
I
say something like that. But I think it's super important. Seeing our both our parents go through different relationships and stuff like that, exposing your child to somebody who isn't going to respect their boundaries, love them, um, ultimately say positive things and not say things with the intent of harming your children is super essential. And when you don't have that, when you don't have those, when you set boundaries, you don't say, hey, you need to respect my children or we're not going to work out, things unravel horribly. And we've seen examples of that. How does it affect the kid?
um, there, I mean, every kid's different. In what I've seen and experienced, they can withdraw, they can stop caring, they can stop communicating it, and that leads to individual trauma where you deal with everything yourself. You stop really being a kid and you grow up a lot faster, and that can lead to, oh wow, you're like really mature for your age, and it's like, yeah,
It's
well,
not necessarily a compliment.
exactly, it's because I had to grow up and start worrying about myself, which yes, everyone can go through, but that can lead to a lot of negative things. Like I said, withdrawing, not communicating, feeling alone, having to handle things yourself instead of bringing them in because you don't want to hinder them or make them upset. Um, there's a lot of hardships that can come with that. And it can lead to the whole atmosphere and the environment that you're in to become negative and lead to like a downward spiral, and which is also why sometimes they just have to get away. But it can lead to a lot of harmful things for the parent and the children, you know. And if you don't talk about it, then
It
whoever
just
knows.
gets worse.
It's just them dealing it with themselves, and the parent might not think anything's wrong.
Absolutely. So you also have gone through kind of a second, uh, leaving for the military. So we talked about earlier that your dad left for the military and how difficult that was for you. Um, did it ever improve over the years, or did he leave more than once? Because I remember him leaving more than once. Did it get easier as he left more, or was there a change?
It never got easier. I don't remember a lot. Like I said, when I was younger, I think you just know how you feel, and I don't remember exact details and all of that. And I was fairly young when he was still in and active and being deployed all the time, so I know it was really hard, and I know he did it like multiple times, like in terms of leaving and all of that. Um, but like once I was in school, I feel like that's all I could focus on, but him leaving never got any easier. No.
Did did he ever did he what changed in him every time he came home? Because I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a change.
Yeah. I mean, what people experience overseas is undeniably difficult. Like and I mean, I still don't know all the details. He's never talked to me. It's hard to open up about those things, just acknowledging what you go through and what you have to experience and do over there. Like
A lot to unpack.
it's a lot to unpack, and it's again not something you necessarily want to unpack with. I mean, this is just my perception, but unpack with your children who you only want to think the world of you and be the best dad or parent or whatever it may be in the world. So you don't want to acknowledge the pain or the hardships or anything like that. But he definitely got a lot more like on edge, if I would say, like especially like when he first came back, like for the first like 2 week to a month, he was very protective. I mean, he's always been very protective of me and you, but specifically like going to school or letting me like leave the house. He always wanted to be there, always very protective and just not wanting to let go, which no parent wants to let go. But it was especially difficult when he first got back and dealing with all of the feelings you have from over there and you don't want to talk to anyone about it, but you feel like you have to be the bigger person and be there for your family. And it's hard to adjust back to civilian life. Like that's what it ultimately comes down to.
I have a friend who expressed something with me um, to help me gain some perspective. He of course didn't feel too comfortable coming on the podcast, but he ended up sharing. We sat for I would say about an hour on the phone, just talking. And I always listen to my friends' call. So obviously, anybody needs help or wants to express themselves, they can always give me a call, hit me up on my Facebook page or whatever. However, you get a hold of me doesn't matter. I'm gonna pick up. So he was going through a tough time, and he told me that he's been struggling ever since he came back home because it was over a 48-hour period. One day it was it was the middle of the night and he was kicking in doors and shooting kids who were holding AK-47s in a village when they were probably just trying to pretend they're home, and they were shooting back and forth, and they had to end lives of children holding guns to come back to America and get nervous around kids.
Yeah.
In 40 hours later, his own children walking into his house was hard. Like walking up the stairs to his house was hard. He had to like call a friend and chat with him because he couldn't even leave. Like he got dropped off because at his house by his buddy, and he couldn't even get up the fucking street to the house. So I know that everybody has different journeys and how they come back home, and a lot of people, they leave a piece of themselves overseas. And it's hard to open up. What is one thing you would say to your dad right now if he was listening to this about the importance of opening up and talking to somebody if he already isn't doing so?
I would say to him, if you don't open up, it will severely hurt you, if not end your life. Because to experience the things that he went through and see how it affects him, it's detrimental,
Mhm.
you know? And it doesn't have to be me, it doesn't have to be family, it could be a random person, it could be someone, but you have to talk about it and acknowledge it. And it's okay to feel the things that you're feeling.
Absolutely. And it really is. Everybody deals with things differently. Um, I know people who have never been shot at once occupationally in the military coming home with severe issues because of who knows what. And I'm not gonna go into their deep dark personal stories, but it's really tough. It's always been tough for me to see him leave and to see him come back a different person, to hear him scream in his sleep, to
Yeah.
hear the nightmares, to have to wake him up when he passes out on the ground because he's so tired coming back from work and he has sleep issues. So now he's laying on the ground in the living room, and I'm like, Dad, wake up. We want to watch Avatar. And he freaks out. And not like violently, but he's terrified when he wakes up because he was startled. And it's important for me to always express myself and to decompress and unload. It's like cracking your back. You have to get rid of that pressure, or it's going to eat you up. And if I could say anything to him, it would be, Dad, you always express to us to open up and communicate with people. It's essential for your children to see you as a beacon of strength. And true strength comes from being honest with yourself and loving yourself enough to open up to somebody. And it doesn't matter who it is. So, and that goes out to all the vets out there, everybody, the families of vets. There's some stuff that's going to eat you up too. It bothers me to this day to see people in military uniform at all, because I start to get little children Eddie feelings of this person's leaving and they're leaving out the door and my sister's crying, and it all comes back to me every single time I see camouflage or particularly the BDUs, the camo ones that he wore when he deployed. There's nothing that I can, put in words to describe seeing families come home, and when they don't come home all the way, and then they stay gone. It hurts. It hurts for the family. It hurts for the family to see it. what effect did that have on you specifically? Kind of a loaded question.
No, it's good. It's just because I still get super emotional about it. Like I know that instant feeling of when he leaves, but also when they come back, and whether that's no matter how they do, like it just makes me want to cry. Like all those videos on Facebook of like people coming home, like I've skipped past them because I instantly cry.
I watch them so I can't cry.
I can't. I instantly scroll past because I know if the second I look at it, I'm bawling my eyes out. But it's hard. It's not only difficult to the spouse, but like you said, the entire family. And whether they're gone for 3 months or 3 years, like that feeling is the same because that's your loved one going off and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't always know where they're at. And all you want to do is love them and keep them safe. And you know that that feeling is reciprocated because that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going out there to do. And that's all you want to do is freaking cry because it's hard to see them go and come back. It's I don't know how to describe it.
I know for one thing I'll always cherish is he brought home the camels. So he brought home a couple of camels and they sang songs, and your song was so much cooler than mine. And I've never I've never been able to associate with the word jealousy before. I don't think I don't get jealous. I really don't understand the concept. I get happy for other people, but that was the one motherfucking time I was jealous. How come your song was better than my song? So I know it sounds stupid and childish, but I was hurting.
No, not at all. And it's a different feeling. Like you can be sad about like I don't know, some superficial thing, but you don't really get it. And like you can empathize and sympathize, but you don't get it until you're a military brat and your family goes out there. Like my best friend in this whole freaking world, her dad is still active in the military and he's been in and out of deployment, and it still breaks my heart whether he's gone or here, like it's I don't know how to describe it. It's another level of emotion because you only want the best for them and to love them, but you know that they're doing it too. And it sounds pretty repetitive, but it's a different level of sadness and heartache because you don't know.
And you also don't know if they're coming back or not. I have way too many friends and people who, family I stay with, that they don't come back home, and if they do come back home, sadly they're in their own life. And so, please talk to somebody vets, and family members of vets. Please let your person in your life who is served in the military know how much they impact your life actively. Rhiannon tells me all the time when I came home, and I don't want to like break into freak out in tears, so I'm gonna try to get through this. The most impactful thing she's ever said to me in my entire life was, "I'm so happy you're home. You're doing a great job." And I was pissed off. I was wiping down tables at a restaurant. I was working 70-hour weeks. My knees were failing because had a knee injury. My mental health was shit. I was really unhappy transitioning out of the military. I wasn't prepared for it, and it's hard to prepare for it. But one thing that kept me on this earth, and I say that with like being honest, I didn't care about shit. But one thing that really meant the world to me is being told that, hey, you're doing a good job. Like, you're doing a good job. Those words are so huge. And I saw it in the movie American Sniper when his wife said it to him, and I freaked out and started crying a bunch. And so, tell your partner that you value them. And kids, tell your dad, hey, it's nice to see you. Those small words, it doesn't have to be something special and heartfelt. That'll make all the difference. And yeah, I just love her to death. But so ultimately, your dad came home from the military. He didn't leave anymore. And then somebody else close to you left. Eddie,
Yeah.
me, the douchebag, right? So
Not the douchebag. I'm
okay.
so high.
Okay. All right. So I ultimately signed up for the military. And what were the initial thoughts and feelings?
Oh, initial thoughts and feelings. One, I was shocked. Well, not necessarily shocked. I was surprised because it was more of, it wasn't like a, oh, by the way, I'm thinking about it. It was a, I did it.
Yeah.
And I'm leaving on this day. And I was like, it's like a stun. It's like when all of the air gets like sucked out of you as a human and you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do, and all those feelings come back. All those feelings of, oh, like the uncertainty, the sadness, happiness because you're doing what you like to do, all of that just right out. It all just comes back up. And so I was surprised. Um, but I was also so proud of you because I knew you would excel in anything you did. But yeah, it was definitely a shock and sad and happy and all the feelings all at once.
What branch would you say I should have chose instead of the Navy?
Oh my gosh. Um, I was surprised when you chose the Navy because I was like, okay, well, he doesn't really love boats or water. You know,
Yeah.
I honestly thought you would have done like the Army, not Air Force, because you're not like the biggest fan of flying.
Oh no. Oh no. Air
I
Force. I would. I have friends that are in the Air Force, and I can honestly say I would join the Coast Guard going to the Air Force. I am not about it. Okay, there's a lot of smart people in the Air Force. You have to do a technical job, and I'm not ragging on the Air Force. I'm saying it's just not my style. You give me a gun and you tell me to shoot somebody, I can do it. You give me a gun, you tell me to clean it, I can do it. You want me to pull security over here? You want me to better my firing position with more sandbags? I get excited. Okay, come on now.
Yeah.
But you tell me you want me to do computer work and do something smart like fly a drone, and my brain just goes. There's no hope for me.
Yeah.
Definitely the Marines or the Army, I could see myself in. But I would have to. There was no way I could not do some form of leadership. So I'd end up, applying for a certain package, and go through the rigorous process of selection. Hopefully, if I could go back and do the military again, I would have definitely, continued. Like I moved around my original contracts and stuff, but I would definitely have pursued a career that has a lot to do with things I can carry on here. And I would have came directly out of, if I passed selection and all that, I would have came directly and joined a police force and gone to the SWAT team and sat in a nice bulletproof truck all day. So that'd be kind of nice.
Now, I have one surprise for you.
A surprise. Is it a gun?
No.
Oh, you didn't buy a new gun?
No. Okay. Unfortunately not. But we will do fun things with the week for the wedding. But besides that, do you have your phone?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, I just sent you an email.
Okay. I don't know how to read, so I hope you figure that out by now.
No, that's okay because you wrote this email.
I wrote this email.
Yes. So okay. I kept all of the letters that you sent me in boot camp.
Oh my goodness.
I compiled them. I put them in hopefully the right order. I tried to go through the timeline. I was talking to a bunch of people, but I've compiled them in one email. And at the very end, I put my own letter in there for you to read. You don't have to read it on here.
I'm going to read it.
No.
I'm going to read it. How do I not read it? I remember every single one of these. The first letter is, "Hi, Bree. I got your school pic. It's in the ID part of my wallet. You make me so proud." Okay. Skipping the letters.
You might cry. It's okay. I cried for so many nights reading them, trying to put them in order, but it's very special to me, and I wanted you to see them and read them because you're such. It's in the letter, so just
it's in the letter. Okay, well, I'm gonna read it.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, bear with me. I'm extremely dyslexic, and I had a few head injuries. So, dear Eddie, words cannot amount to the love and appreciation I have for you. It is truly an honor to be your sister. You have been the greatest protector, best friend, shoulder to rant on. Yeah, because you never cry, you just get mad at, and role model for anyone in this world could ask for. Even in the darkest times, we have stuck it out together. Though tough times as a kid, to even more stress as an adult, I know I wouldn't have lived this long without you. I always remember the moments that we shared playing Monopoly until ungodly hours of the night, and our numerous times you tried to teach me how to break dance, play video games, and knit. I'll even miss the times when we made forts in the loft bed and listened to Harry Potter all night. Again, dyslexic people. Even back then, you'd say, if you have any questions about the story, just ask and I'll explain it. If I was ever in trouble and didn't know what to do, you guided me to do the right thing. Even when I was scared, you gave me a confidence to stand up. When I was insecure, you gave me the heart to not give a fuck about what people think. And whether it was horses, dance, or even gymnastics, you always been my biggest supporter who showed up, making it more special than I could ever imagined. It's a true blessing to be in your presence. Somehow, you always find a way to cheer me up. I'm inspired by your drive, brutal honesty, and grit that you tackle the world with. Even after all the torture I put you through, trashing your Legos and stealing your army guys, you pushed me to be the best person I could be. And I can only pray that my children and family that come after can be half the man you are. You are the best person I know. Together, goodness Christ, we will together we will retrain the family the right way. I cannot wait to see how far you go. I truly love you so much, Eddie. XOXO Brie. Oh my goodness. Tear jerking party today. Oh my goodness.
I know. Now, I wanted to give you these letters to not only show that, yes, I still keep mail, but you have always been there for me in my life, and that's indescribable. And it's phenomenal, and I love you so, so much.
I love you much as well, sis. Can't listen to many songs about sisters without crying. So thank you so much for that. And I'll look through these and yeah, I'll just laugh and I'm gonna print them out and save them. I have a folder with all my military stuff in it. So
yes, so just a little tangent from the military thing, but that I would always get excited when I saw mail from you when you were in boot camp, because it was just the greatest thing, because obviously you don't have your phone, you have no modes of communication, and those were the best letters I ever received in middle school that like kept me going. So
well, I'm very thankful that I could have a positive impact on you. Mm-hmm. So moving on from the tearjerker, what impact did my military service have on you, in good ways or bad ways?
Good ways. Well, this time I was older, so I could remember everything, or most things that I wanted to remember. I remember always being worried. I'm not about you, but for you, because I just wanted you to stay safe and be careful, and I knew you would excel tenfold at whatever you decided to tackle. I wanted my brother home. And more than that, I knew I had to be strong and help those who also cared for you. So, Rhiannon, this is probably where her and I got the closest growing up, because I knew what it was like to have people leave. I knew what it was like to have people come back and deal with those emotions and also help my mom through it. And so I just wanted her to know that I was there for her always, and whatever she needed, whether it was figuring out how to even send mail or what to do or how to act in certain situations, that I would be there to help her, because I had gone through that before. And so in those ways, it really taught me to, in a way, step up and be there for others, and also for everyone in my family too, because everyone was worried about you, whether they had talked to you in the last year or 5 years. Everyone always was asking and cared, and I wanted to be there for them. Downsides, wish you were there for some sports, but I would always write you about it, and you'll see that in the letter because I knew you were there in spirit and always cheering me on. And emotionally, again, I was listening to Eric Thomas because he not only talks about like motivating physically, but also healing yourself and your mindset. And I always pushed myself because I knew that's what you would have told me to do.
I would have loved to be there. I don't have like a big ball of regrets in my life, but one of my things that I do regret is not being able to see you in real life on any of these sports. I've obviously I Insta stalked and Facebook stalked and all the stalking in the free chances I got to watch you as you grew and change and develop. And it's cool to watch somebody from afar, but it'll never ever make up and replace the things that I wish I was able to be there, see the emotions as you and feel the emotions as you look back from whatever platform and see me in the stands. It's a full circle moment, and I'm gonna get my goddamn full circle moment. I don't care if I gotta buy soccer outfits, dance outfits. I want to be there, and if not in your life, then in your children's life. But thankfully, we have a lot of life left to live, and nothing's ever going to change our relationship unless we get into a big fight. We'll have to make up the next day, so that'll be like a 6-hour break. So tell me a little bit about adventures in the Navy, because I know you came and visited a whole lot. You actually you were the most influential person coming to visit me, because in perspective of my family side, because my mom didn't come and visit like multiple times, and Bill never came and visited for anything. And then obviously me and my dad, we like 7 days before the Navy, we had like a fight to the death almost. So we weren't really talking and we didn't talk after that until he died. We still didn't talk. So you were the only one that was really there on my side of the family. And I had to create this whole new this family unit for me. I had to put together what my family is going to be in the future. And this is where that self-isolation turned into me having a little bit of frustration, a little bit of hurt, a little heartbreak, a lot of nights staying awake up until like 4 a.m. when I got to work at 6, knowing that people aren't making an effort to come see me. But then I fly home 3,000 miles, like I'm living off a broke bitch paycheck, flying on irregular flights from Virginia all the way to Seattle, Washington. That's like at least 800 a ticket, and I don't make a lot of money. And then I got to fly back.
Yeah.
So I'm coming over here, and everyone's like, "Oh, come and see me, come and see me." You made a significant effort along with Rihanna's mother, Cherie, and Rihanna herself, and always coming to see me. My mom did come to see me once, and it was great. It really smoothed out some of the rough edges that I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any adventures that really stuck out other than your chocolate nougat experience in California?
You already knew what I
Or
was
sorry, in
gonna
Chicago.
say. That was Chicago. I'm so glad you brought this up. Every trip that I took to come see you with Rhiannon and Cherie was an adventure, whether it was just getting there in general, to the hotels, to Black Friday shopping and not knowing. Like, it was immense. But through it all, I knew I wanted to be there. Like, I remember planning the Chicago trip, and it was close to Thanksgiving, and I was like, I'm going. Like, I have to be there. And it was really important for me to show up, not just because I missed you, but because I wanted to show my support and show you that I would be there for you no matter what. Not to say that the others wouldn't, but they just couldn't.
That they weren't.
Time. Yeah. So I found it extremely important to be there, and I wouldn't have given it for the world. But definitely the Chicago trip was probably the coldest environment I had ever been in before Pullman. Um, it was so cold when we went there. I remember you pushing me in my wheelchair because at that point I was still in the wheelchair with broken lumbar spine. And it was just the funniest of times. I know that sounds weird, but it was so incredible to see you graduating. I was like, I am so proud of the man that my brother's turned into. He's completely turned his life into a 180 and defied all the odds, and I just want to celebrate him. And so it was very important for me to be there, and it was so precious to see how much you and Rhiannon also cared for each other. Like, I knew you guys love each other, and we all see it, we all know it, we're all envious. You guys are a phenomenal have a phenomenal relationship. But that's when I really knew, like, when she was coordinating and doing all of those things to plan the trip, she's like, hey, do you want to come? Like, we'll do all these things and I'll get it together and organize it. Like, that's when I knew, like, she's your person.
You knew before me. Why didn't you let me know?
Well, you wrote me in the letters. You'll read. You, in one of them, you
never said that.
You did.
Oh, why are you trying to sell me out? Like, it's like she told me she loved me first, and now I knew before I asked her to, way before I asked her to marry, that she was the one for me. I knew she was the one for me from the moment that she first looked at me. She said we should make a secret handshake, and I said that was it. That was it for me. We were watching Twilight. I'll never forget.
The Chicago trip was great. I'd say the San Diego trip, where you took us on a tour of the carrier, that was the best thing I have ever experienced. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, because I mean, we've been to Everett, we've been to JBLM, I saw them all the time. I just never got to actually go and look at it and experience and kind of get a little bit more perspective of what you went through, and that was great. Also, jumping off the side was pretty cool too.
Yeah, we jumped off the side of an aircraft carrier into
I always say that,
the bailout spot. So
that was pretty cool. That was
really so for the military going people, and for non-military going people, there's a LSL platform, the Landing Safety Officer platform. So in the movies, it's the guys that wear the white jackets and they got with little flight deck suits, and they're on the right side. If you're looking at the aircraft if you're looking from the front to the back of the ship, as the aircraft are landing, that right side, the LFO platform, you need a spot to bail out, because if that plane comes in at the wrong angle, you are going to be flatlined, baby. So there's a bailout spot right there. And I used to run on the flight deck every night, no matter how cold, with my weight vest or without the weight vest. I'd run around the flight deck with me and my boy Deontay Strait. And every time I made a loop, I would jump off there, and this is at nighttime, so not everything's illuminated. And I would be a sick bullshit liar if I said there wasn't a couple times I almost died jumping into it, because it was dark. I was like, I'm just gonna make the jump. Like, weird things would happen. Sometimes they shut off the lights on the aircraft carrier, or the lights would go out, and I would be jumping and falling into nothingness. And then thankfully the net was there. So yeah. I've done some risky things in my life, but the LSL platform jump is definitely one of my favorite memories about the aircraft carrier. I really enjoyed being able to show you, because there's always been this huge separation between the military and our family, and it's supposed to be something that's looked up to and a prestigious event. Yes. Why hide it from the family? There's nothing pretty about bombing people or leaving your family for years, but bringing retribution to those who need it from the United States of America, even sometimes just to bring a little quote unquote democracy, aka get your gas and your opium from your countries. But things happen. Sometimes you need a little bit of that democracy, quote unquote. And I think we need to get rid of that separation of the families. It's good for the families to feel like they're involved, because they are involved. But if they don't feel like that and feel like there's a separation between the military and the family, it's going to lead to relationship issues. Me and Rhiannon have had a lot of problems that I caused because I wanted to separate that, and it was a decision that I didn't like that Bill made when I was a kid, and I didn't like that my grandpa on my dad's side didn't have anybody to talk to. He actually ended up taking his own life when he came back from the military, and he was in the Marines, and he did amazing special operations stuff because that's who he was built for. He was built as a warrior, and not having that separation, not talking to somebody, extremely detrimental to the family members. So I definitely appreciate being able to share that moment with you, and all the moments that we shared as a you, me, and Rhiannon have had lots of memories.
Yes, no, it was always a great time, but the best part about it was seeing you, and
well, I'm
was...
okay, yeah, but jumping off that platform.
I think I still have a video of it somewhere. I'm gonna find it.
I have it somewhere. Yeah, I have all the videos still from my entire military career on my laptop, and I don't ever look at them, but I'm probably gonna eventually. So yeah, especially when you hook up a GoPro to your chest for a lot of deployment, you catch a lot of funny shit happen. So
I thought you lost it in like Hawaii.
I did lose it in Hawaii. It fell down probably about 27 to 30 feet down.
Yeah.
And I was diving as sun was setting. I was diving with a couple of my buddies as spotters to make sure I didn't, one, make sure I didn't drown, and two, we were already paddleboarding looking at giant turtles swim by us. So I'm free diving, and coming up with my lungs are hurting, my head's pounding, I'm like bleeding out of my nose. I'm scared of sharks because sharks and water and blood don't go well. I'm keep diving 20 feet, 15 feet, and the land's changing. There's reef somewhere, so I'm diving. I finally open my eyes. I'm bashing my face into the reef. I'm stepping on reef. I got turtles and fish moving past me, and finally I saw this weird thing. It looked kind of like a square instead of a rock. Dove down, bam, GoPro.
It's a miracle it made it. But
yeah, and it was a gift too, so I didn't want to lose a gift.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it didn't drop my wedding ring, because that would have been a big L. Yeah. So yeah, but I got it, and I'm super thankful for it. So, so you've experienced a lot. One of the cool things about us being brother and sister is we get to share things together. Hobbies we like. We both like white people. We're both in relationships with people who are white. We both like horrible humor. We like Apple iPhones.
Yes.
We love dogs.
Absolutely.
We support interracial marriages. We don't really care. We're happy for everybody.
Yeah.
What are other things that you enjoy in life? Because I know that you and Brandon seem to have something that me and Rhiannon like, which is guns.
Yes, absolutely. I'm more just like getting into it. Like, I was always educated and aware of it, not to the extent I would have liked, but I always think that I knew how to operate a gun and use it when I needed to. But thankfully,
who taught you that? Who taught you that?
Bill.
What? Can't teach me.
Just like safety. More of like safety thing. Like, obviously it's kind of like common sense, like, okay, I know how to use it, but like how to be safe around it in a general sense. Okay. I have in the recent like year a lot more like hands-on practice with that, which I definitely think is necessary in this day and age in the world that we're in. And thankfully I got to experience that hobby with my fiance Brandon, and now with you and Rhiannon, because we're just a little group and I love it.
So what feelings do you have now that you are a firearm owner and you have firearms? I'm not going to ask whether or not you conceal carry or not, because that's not anybody's business, and concealed carrying is like, you conceal it. You don't just, hey, I have a gun, guys, look at me. As much as people like to say, why is your fanny pack stupid, and why are you wearing this fanny pack, and I'm like, oh, because it's a cool fanny pack, obviously, with a gun in it. That's for select people. It's not supposed to be for everybody. Yeah. What feelings do you have post carrying now that you are an armed citizen and you're not an easy victim or a soft target, or however people want to classify you?
I am happy about it. I feel safe. I feel educated. I am prepared for certain situations. In terms of like society in general, I think there definitely needs to be more education around it, and not so much like glorified, and like how it's seen and portrayed on like movies and
In
TV.
Hollywood.
Exactly. It needs to be more like practical. Um, I mean, I've experienced people, or I've known people who have experienced a lot of gun violence. I mean, the incident at Marysville Pilchuck High School, those were my friends. I knew them personally. I was supposed to be there
Yeah.
going to that school. If I hadn't moved down to a different city and gone to a different high school, I would have been there.
And you would have been you would have been shown with Zoe too.
Exactly. So I mean, it really hits home on, for me, the importance and precedent I'm gonna set in my life and my family. Doesn't mean it has to be for everybody. Everyone can make their own decisions, but I think no matter what, people have to be educated about it. And again, this plays into situational awareness, knowing uh, how to de-escalate certain situations. I think that that's one of the most important tools that you could have, you know? So I think it's very important to be aware. You don't have to be a gun owner to have knowledge about it or know how to de-escalate a situation or anything like that. I think it needs to be um, a more open topic instead of more like taboo, which I think what you're doing with introducing the safety to everyone is crucial.
Yes, I think it is absolutely essential. The most dangerous person in this world is someone who has a gun and doesn't know what the fuck to do with it, and
Or scared of it.
or scared of it. And I say those things very bluntly for a reason, because those are lessons that we as a society usually learn, and they're lessons written in blood often. Not knowing what you're doing can lead to gun related incidents. We in our family on this side, a friend of our family has lost family members due to gun negligence,
Mm-hmm.
and the negligence of safety, and the hole that leaves in a family is something that is irreparable. I think is how you pronounce it, right? So it's you're unable to repair this hole. You can't just weld it shut. You can't just buy a new kid. Like it's someone's lost a family member, a mother's lost a son, and that those things are serious. And another aspect of that is how many times as children were you told not to do something and then you get curious and do it anyways? This
Exactly.
natural way of rebellion. If you make guns a part of your family unit, and you get rid of that curiosity, like, oh, okay, I'm 10 years old and I go shooting with for like Jackson, for instance. I'm 10 years old. I go shooting with my brother Eddie and my sister and my mom, and we shoot guns, and I know all the rules. I'm the one who loads all the magazines. I'm the one who tells the safety rules before we start shooting. I'm the one who makes sure that my mom is wearing her safety headphones so her hearing isn't damaged. I'm the one who corrects somebody when they turn a little bit out of the comfort zone of shooting forward. Like even if you turn your body and not the gun, Jackson, if you're out there on the range, he's going to be like, wait, face that way. And he'll scream it.
Mm-hmm.
He's super on it. It's so important to do that because I just removed all the curiosity surrounding guns. He's playing video games with guns. He's watching movies with guns, and they glorify guns. Matthew McConaughey glorifies guns in his movies. You know, the Keanu Reeves, they do it in all these movies. They're doing violent things every single time, and it's not, excuse me, not every single time, but they're doing violent things. Hollywood in general, these actors are using firearms, um, and whether it's a movie like John Wick, which is a retribution based movie, or Black Hawk Down, where we have actors being very reverent and respectful of this real event that happened to our soldiers in Somalia, or we have like there's so many different scenarios, and the glorification of firearms is not a good thing. Is it cool to have a gun and go out shooting with your buddies and be like, oh, I like yours, I like yours, cool, let's have some fun. That's the American way to celebrate in a safe, responsible manner. But when you start to introduce alcohol into firearms, when you start to introduce people who have a lack of knowledge and they're willy nilly with firearm safety, we get dead kids.
Yeah.
We
Or just
get
think of
dead
it as
families.
just think of it as like a toy or something that you can play around with, and it's
Mhm.
not seriously or life ending, that's when serious issues arise.
Yes, it is. It's a very useful tool, but only if you use it the right way. And
Exactly.
I can't stress that enough. Seeing the incident happen at Marysville Pilchuck High School was soul crushing to me. I thought you were there. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I don't know. It's kind of screwed up to say, but I'm happy to say it. Thank you. Thankfully, you weren't there. Thank God you weren't there in that moment. I wouldn't want it to happen to anybody, but thank God you weren't. And that led to my current journey, which I'm working on right now, kind of facing that fear that I had, that terrifying, soul gripping fear. Active shooter prevention is a big part of my life right now, and what I'm working towards with some of my friends. There's nothing more important than bolstering schools and their defenses and making sure that our kids have a safe area to go to school in. And politicians have done literally nothing about it. And it's as simple as, it's not like just locking doors. It's as simple as making schools not easy targets. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a secret that a bullet can travel through glass. It's not even the person who plays video games knows that. Um, and it's not going to stop with just one thing. We need to have a projection of power like the police and use their sirens as, or a lot of times they're flashing lights, or a lot of cops use projection of power as a way to stop criminals. The military uses projection of power. There's nothing wrong with having bolstered school security, but that doesn't mean we militarize our schools either. But I think there's definitely a lot of things we can do better. What was the ultimate effect of you having a strong relationship with your partner and going out to shoot, and him supporting you in being an armed woman? Because a lot of people have this pathetic stigma that women don't need to protect themselves, or women guns aren't for women, and I think it's stupid as hell. I like to slap people in the face who say things like that. So
I definitely agree. Keys through your knuckles aren't really going to do anything if someone is actually trying to harm you. And I am so thankful that um, my partner encourages me to be educated and protected and be able to stand up for myself and protect myself. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean carrying all the time, but it means knowing how to get out of certain situations or be better. But it's wonderful to have that support, to know that not only is he there to protect me, but he's there to encourage me to protect myself. Because
I know
that,
my wife does that for me. She encourages me to protect myself,
yeah,
and um, it's important. It's important to have that factor of your partner being supportive of you making it home. I've
yeah,
been involved in multiple scenarios in my life where bullets go flying, or I'm faced with a knife versus no gun situation, and I know that having a gun faced with a robbery at knife point in the streets of Seattle at nighttime is way more fun than getting having a fight versus a knife without one, because you don't know what's on that knife and you don't want to get a disease. So you also don't want to bleed out. So
exactly.
guns are distance tools too. So as you pull it out and look behind you before you take a step back and move back and create space, you now have an advantage. You're no longer an easy victim with one poke of a pointy thing.
Exactly. And there's definitely a time and a place, and you have, as any responsible gun owner, have to know when to use it and when not to use it. And that's um, speaks to your education and your knowledge around them in general. So I think it's really important. I also agree. It's so stupid. I think everyone, no matter who they are, what they are, need to be aware and be able to protect themselves, because you never know what can happen in risky situations or any situations. You can be walking down the street and something can happen. But
yeah, I don't expect to be leaving from work and then someone's supposed to, or 3 a.m. in the morning, because I started work early and I don't have a gun on me because I don't carry a gun at work at this point in my life. And someone pulls a knife on me and says, "Give me all your money, bitch." And I have to make a decision whether or not to beat them to the punch and go hands on, or wait for them to act and try to defend against a knife, which is never fun for those who have had to do it. So,
yeah,
like, thankfully, I don't like to hesitate when a situation, if I, like, deadly force is authorized at that point. So I go hands on and I use the wall to help convince his face not to stab me. And thankfully I wasn't harmed in the process, because I could have been dead.
and that sucks. So
Yeah. You
yeah,
can't
definitely.
plan for those things to happen.
Yeah, you can't prepare. You can't expect for this to happen. And if you're in an area that they've they've pretty much given the criminals a green light, yeah, you're going to be faced with those situations.
I'm gonna bring this one out. Proper planning prevents poor performance, and that is in all aspects of life.
The 5 P's, the keys of is the cornerstone of your success, because I can tell that
Yeah,
you plan a lot of things in your life, and it usually works out well.
I do. I'm very analytical thinker. At least I like to think I am. And I
Well,
make
I must know then. Do you plan on putting your children in jiu-jitsu classes, or what are they going to be doing as a child to learn confidence, self-defense, and stuff like that? Because I know I'm doing jiu-jitsu for the kids. No matter what happens in life, the kids will be in jiu-jitsu for at least 3 years. At least.
Yeah.
That's enough to get a good foundation for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, if they don't want to pursue like karate or jujitsu or anything like that,
Karate, no.
no,
Karate.
then I'm
Yeah!
gonna.
I don't think so.
Well, whatever it may be, then I'm gonna teach them the tactics that and tools that they need to be safe. Uh, and just things that they can do to mitigate the risk that they will encounter in life, you know. Um, not all of it is going to be hands-on. A lot of it is about just double and triple checking and making sure that you just take the necessary steps to mitigate anything that could happen to you. Now, not to say that I'm going to be like a paranoid parent and being like, you got to do this all the time, but definitely give them, again, just more tools to better themselves and stay safe, because they're my kids.
Yeah, and you want them to continue to thrive just as you
Yes.
have. So
Yeah.
what is in the future for you? I know you have this rock on your hand. So what's going on?
Yes. So I am planning a wedding. Very exciting. When I was graduating school, people were like, oh, so like, what are you doing after you graduate? I'm like, oh, moving to California, planning a wedding, starting a new job, trying to find a house. And they're just like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing like next week. And I'm like, it'd be a lot more stress.
This is why you fail.
No.
So you're not one of those people who just like freak out now.
No, I definitely try to create the best situations possible, but of course things happen. But yeah, currently planning a wedding. Super, super excited for that, even though it's already like I'm married, like we've been living together, doing our life and taking the right steps together for our future. So that's very exciting. Um, I started a new job, so I am working on that. I just hit my 90 days, if you don't count my internship. So that's pretty promising. I'm stepping foot into the corporate world, which is intimidating, but an exciting learning experience that I'm ready to take on. In terms of long term, finding a house in this market, we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so that's the short term. Long term, honestly, just taking it as it comes. In my life, I've learned that because I had to grow up so fast, it was hard to picture what I want for myself instead of meeting what other people want for me. So it's hard to say, yes, I definitely want to do this in my future, or I want to accomplish this. And I definitely have short term goals, but in terms of what do I want to accomplish long term, it's I just want to be the best person I can be and be my own definition of success at that moment, which is so like corny because I feel like you always have to have a long term goal, which I think I do, but it's hard to know when one, I'm this young and I just want to be the best I can be for myself and my relationship and all the people in my life.
Absolutely. I think that's awesome. I always try to have these 3 same goals, because it's always 3 goals, they're pretty bland goals, but they're pretty easy to stick by. All right.
Mm-hmm.
More money, more guns, and more freedom. And freedom can be whatever you choose to call it. Like freedom can be cleaning up, financial freedom, or some free time with your family, or freedom can be saying, okay, I want to hang out with you right now, but sadly I got more important things to do, so I can clear up time with my family later.
Yes.
And moving it around. And then obviously more money people say more money, less problems. I don't think so. I think more money, you have more ability to work with it. And when it comes to the more guns, more gun training, because you can never train enough. Like I try to spend at least 10 minutes a day with my firearm on my hip, drawing it, putting it away, clearing near, clearing far, doing reloads. Obviously this got really slowed down with my shoulder incident, but now it's one arm to everything. So it's even more exciting because now I got, look at this, all these things, this new rock I just turned over. There's a bunch of baby crabs under it that I'm trying to wrangle in right now. So
definitely
more guns and more practice and more. There's never a bad time to practice being well versed with your firearms, so you don't make a poor decision that reflects that completely impacts your family.
Yeah, I think those are all super good goals. Two, like material ones that we have long term. One, I'm going to travel. I'm going to travel the world. I want to go to like Indonesia. I want to go to Bali. I want to go to Thailand and all these interesting places once the world kind of settles down a little bit. Because I did study international econ and I never got to travel internationally. So, definitely want to do that. But getting a house with some land and having my own horses so I can jump them in my arena in my backyard. That's what I want.
That would be a dream come true. Absolutely. Well, I really do appreciate you and Willis taking time out of your day to join us. He was a great assistant. I only got a little bit of feedback from him, but I'll take what I can get. Thank you so much for joining me and opening up and sharing things. It's always great for me to hear different perspectives on growing up, and you have a great outlook, especially about how you deal with things. Post these incidents that happen as we're children. It's not always easy to pick up the pieces and you put together into a puzzle, and the puzzle is not what most people would look at it like. It's what you want it to look like because you took the power back, and I want to commend you for that. And thank you so much for taking time out of your super busy Monday for this. So
absolutely. You know, working for a bank, I get bank holidays off, so no problem at all. But I am so thankful you had me on the podcast. It's been an amazing experience, and I'm so grateful we got to chat.
Yeah, it's always good to talk to you, sis.
You too.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We spent a lot of time on this podcast talking about mental health, but I want to talk about physical health for a second. There's nothing more uplifting and confidence boosting than looking in the mirror and seeing exactly what you want looking back at you. The person I trust to make sure that's happening, no matter if I'm going through an injury or not, is Brian Click. He's my friend, mentor, coach, and now one of our sponsors here at Off the Deep End. Head over to the link in the description and check out why I choose him. All over his Instagram and his website, you will be seeing the different clients who've worked with him in the past, whether it's bodybuilding or just maintaining a healthy lifestyle or working towards a certain goal in a sport and making sure you make weight. Brian is a guy I trust for every single different category and facet that fitness surrounds. There's nothing more important than liking what you see in the mirror and liking how you feel when you wake up every day. So head over to his website and get this process started.